Hello, everyone. My name is Demetrius Mack, and welcome to the Week 13 recap of my NFL Fantasy Wrath League. We've got quite a bit we got to talk about in a shortest extended amount of time. It's going to be shorter than usual weeks. That's primarily because I'm by myself, and usually when I'm by myself, these things tend to go a little faster. They tend to not be as long because there's not obviously as much conversation I can have with myself without having any guests. But as expected, nobody pretty much wanted to come on this week. It's kind of that week where everybody's tending to themselves. Shout out to Isaiah. It is his birthday today, so happy birthday to you. Today is December the 8th. This is the recorded on Thursday, December the 8th, and it will be going up on Saturday if everything goes as planned. There's a big Raiders game today. As I'm usually in my Raiders gear, but today's really big, so I'm hoping for Raiders W. But without further ado, let's jump in to the recap, shall we, folks? Now, we had some interesting things happen, and I'm just going to go ahead right now and show you everything that went down in Week 13 and then get right into the standings and pretty much break down what has to go right and what can go wrong for some people in these playoff scenarios that we have going here. Now, we look right here. This was a crucial game for me. I came into this game 7-5. Devon, the owner of the baller team, came in 6-6. This was his elimination game. This was his game, basically saying, okay, if he doesn't win this game, he's done. There's nothing he can do. As you can see, 92-63. This game was kind of over before the second half of the day play. He had primarily a lot of his players playing in the latter set. Let me go here to the simple box score in the earlier sessions of the day. And nobody produced. He had absolutely no production. When Blake Bortles, the season that man's been having is their second highest score on the team with 10 points, you're probably going to lose the game. Just to be frank. Nobody stepped up for him. Nobody really came and did anything for him. On the other hand, for me, nobody had any tremendous games for me. But everybody kind of solid across the board a little bit, kind of in the middle here, between Frank Gore, Steve Smith, and Larry Fitzgerald. It wasn't that much going on for me. But the big deal for me here was my kicker who got me 12 points in the Ravens, who played absolutely terrific against Miami that week. And for all of you fantasy owners who have Ryan Tannehill, Jarvis Landry, and Ajayi, if you played them that week, I'm sorry because they put up abysmal numbers. And it was hard, Jarvis Landry got a bunch of catches. I think he had something like 10 catches, so that might have been good for PPR leagues. Jay Ajayi still got around 8 points, I believe, and he hasn't had less than 8 points since Week 5. So he's still showing that even at their worst, he's still going to try and get you the bare minimum for what you're going to probably be expecting from that man. So going forward, it's going to be hard to trust Miami, but if you're relying on those type of players, hey, there's nothing you can do. So moving on to the next matchup, we have another big matchup, which was the ESO Legends versus the Suge Knights. And the ESO Legends came into this past week, Week 13, 5-7. And the Suge Knights were 7-5, sitting in a cozy second place. But now they have lost. And they lost pretty bad. They lost by almost 19 points. And that has dropped them down to number 4, and I'll get into that in the standings of why this was such a big win for ESO Legends and such a tremendous loss for the Suge Knights. But getting into the scores here, David Johnson 29 points. Everybody else useless on his team this week, absolutely useless. You can see here nothing went on. The ESO Legends players, they came out to play. His running backs came out to play, and that's what ultimately got him the win. Russell Wilson had a decent game, and Odell Beckham Jr. had 100 yards. So, hey, he put up decent amount of numbers. And when David Johnson is going to be your all reliable for this guy right here, he's the workhorse of this entire fantasy team for him. And he got 29 points. That's a typical David Johnson game. Let's just be real. He's gotten 100 scrimmage yards in every game this season. In fantasy land, that is just, my God, like just beautiful. It's beautiful. So you get anybody else on this team to perform relatively well, it's going to be hard to beat the Suge Knights. But when everybody else plays like they did in Week 13 on his team, as you can see here, he's going to be vulnerable. Never bowing down, and the Murder Boners. This was a big win for the Murder Boners. They absolutely needed this win because this week they are heading into a matchup with the Kid Got Next. And this and that, like I said, I'll probably break more down to this, but that is probably going to be the battle for fourth or fifth place. But there are a bunch of other scenarios that could play out as well. But this was going up against someone who was claiming they are playing, but not really performing. At this point, I would just honestly, Solomon, if you're watching this, I would just be like, yo, man, I'm not playing. I wouldn't admit to playing, because if you're playing and you're 2-11, 2-11, that's hard, man. That's hard, just to say the least. It was a big win for the Murder Boners here. Big performances by no one in this game. There was no big performance. It was just consistent performances from Kirk Cousins, Doug Martin, Ezekiel Elliott, Michael Crabtree, and it got him the W this week. On the other side here, there was nothing going on besides his kicker and his defense. Similar situation to me, but he ended up taking the L. The Fundraisers versus Force. Now, this is someone who is on a streak right now. He is on a 4-game winning streak. He's matched up with me this week. And he's looking to make that 5, and he's actually looking to possibly get that final playoff spot. It is a long shot. But he's looking to get that last playoff spot. He absolutely demolished our only technically inactive player in the league, which is Force, and they are on a 3-game losing streak, but they were not active way before that started. And yeah, he's looking to push. And you gotta see here that all across the board for the Fundraisers is just consistency. If he gets into the playoffs, I don't know if anybody can stop him. I think it might be a good thing if he stays out, because honest to God, you see the team that he has assembled here, and they're starting to all mesh and perform, whether it's through trade, whether it's through waiver wire, whether it's through just, hey, they just had to wait for them to finally wake up. It's starting to come together from, which is why he's on this tremendous 4-game winning streak, trying to salvage what he can from this season, but it may not be enough. And on the other side for Force, there's Spencer Ware, Jordy Nelson, but there's nothing really to talk about with this player because he's inactive, so why spend time, really talking about him? There's nothing more to discuss with him. The last matchup was a big one. It was the Kid Got Next versus Isaiah's team, and Isaiah, congratulations to you. I said you wouldn't reach 10 wins. You ended up reaching 10 wins. Good for you, man. Let's see what you do in the playoffs. This was a bit of a bizarre game because, as you can see here, DeMarco Murray was left in. He was left in, and there was no attempt to adjust. I don't know if, Eric, if you're watching this, if you wanted to, if that was a strategic play, maybe you want to match up with him in the first round or something. You plan on beating Tum Tum this week. And Tum Tum, who is the owner of the Murder Boners. And I don't know. I just don't see it. Either way, it probably wouldn't have helped you because nobody on your team really performed as well. And this is our league champion. He's really on the verge of not making the playoffs and not being able to defend his title, which would suck, but that's fantasy football. Sometimes you just have a down season, or in his case, he had a very great start to the season, and now is starting to trend in that downward spiral where it's like, okay, he may not even go for a title run this year and be able to defend his title. So we'll see how things play out. But that is what went down. That is what went down in Week 13. Now let's get over to the good stuff where I'm going to start breaking down some things for you all. Now let's go ahead here. Let's go ahead and look at these standings. Let's see who moved up from moved up from number 5 to number 2. With his win last week was the Murder Bonus. He is now sitting comfortably at number 3. And the Suge Knights dropped 2 spots. He's in 4th. He is in 4th place. And the Fundraisers, he's at 6 and 7. There's 3 6 and 7 teams in this league. He is sitting at 8th place. A lot has got to go right for him. He's got to get a W for me, along with a loss he's got to have a loss from Dion's team. The Suge Knights have got to lose. And also who has got to lose is the Kid Got Next for any chance for him to have that spot. And I imagine the other 6 and 7 team, which is ESO Legends, he would have to lose as well too. And along with the Ballers. So a lot has to go. That's a lot to ask for. And frankly, it may not be possible. I don't know if he'll move up in the rankings if because the Ballers matches up with the Suge Knights here. And I'll get into the matchups a little bit later, but Isaiah is still number one. He still got that top spot locked down. And as you can see here, I want to just point this. I've been pointing out all season. He is the only person in the league who has not had 1,000 points or more scored against him throughout the entire season. Whenever somebody matches up with Isaiah, it's usually a low point in their season. It is probably going to be a top 3 lowest outing that they're going to put up. He's drawn the matchups. He will sit here and tell you, he'll probably be on the show next week. He will sit here and tell you that, oh, like, it's not their fault. But the fact of the matter is that these numbers don't lie right here. These numbers don't lie. And they're saying that, yes, you've put together, a nice, decent attack. His number in points for has gone up. So kudos to him there. But in terms of people putting up numbers on him, it just doesn't happen. He's drawn good matchups throughout fantasy. I'd love to not have 1,000 points scored against me in fantasy, and that's just not the case. The fact that it's going into week 14 and that he has amassed that this is still at 990 is amazing. It's amazing, but it's coming playoff times. We'll see what happens. But he remains at number 1. I have jumped up from number 3 to number 2, and I probably will remain at that situation, or probably remain at that spot as long as I win this week. Now, dropping from number 4 to number 5 was the Kid Got Next with that loss. And it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard for him because he has a matchup with the Murder Boners, and I think now let me go over here. Let me go over here because I would go over to the waiver wires, but nothing really happened in the waiver wires. There was a few. Let's just go and check them out real quick. But nothing really happened in the waiver wires. Let's go ahead and check them out just for that. We had Golden Tate picked up. I picked up Tyler Boyd and Cameron Ray, Matt Prater, Ladarius Green, Dennis Pitta. I don't think any of those players are going to have too big an impact except for possibly Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd, I picked him up because he's playing against Cleveland, and he's at 60 yards, I think, in the last 3 games without AJ Green. So I'm looking, maybe I could put him into that flex position. I think if he's still out there in your league, hey, why not? It's a matchup versus Cleveland, and the way they looked last week is looking like they're ready to put some more points on the board this coming week for week 14. It is an away game, but still, it's Cleveland. All right, I'm sorry if any Cleveland fans watching this, but you guys have LeBron and the Cavs. All right, go cheer for them right now because the Browns, they're just not doing it. They're just not doing it. So going over to the Week 14 matchups. So here's how the things break down. You look at the top of the screen here, and you see I've got a matchup with the 8th place Fundraisers. Force and Isaiah's team. That is a completely irrelevant match. It does not matter who wins. It does not matter who lets. That is the most irrelevant thing. Isaiah does not even have to check his phone this week. He doesn't have to make any adjustments. It doesn't matter if he wins or loses. He's in. He's locked in at number 1. He's got his playoff spot. He doesn't have to sweat. He doesn't have to worry about positioning or anything. It's all good for him. Now, this matchup right here could determine the spot for the last playoff because the loser of this, if the Murder Bonus wins, he's got his spot. He'll move up to 9 wins. He's good. He's got his spot, okay? But if he loses, he then drops to 8 and 7. I'm sorry. I believe it's 8 and 7. 8 and 6. I'm sorry, not 8 and 6. He'll drop to 8 and 6. So let's take a look at this matchup right here. Let's take a look at everything that's going on and going down in this week. So I've got a matchup with the 8th place Fundraisers who need me to lose badly. But on top of that, they not only need me to lose, they need the Kid Got Next. They need him to lose. They need Dion to lose. And they need ESO Legends to lose. They need so much, Phil needs so much to happen for him that it would be an anomaly if he got in. Because so much needs to, and that doesn't even get it, because he's sitting in 8th place right now. Would he move up with a victory over me? Because I did, in fact, beat Dabalas. And if he wins, this means it'll be a sweep over me. And Devon and him will have the same record. So will he get that final spot? Because he also lost to Eric, but he beat Dion. So there's a whole bunch of things. There's a whole bunch of arithmetic going on that's going to determine this. That is really, if you think about it, just makes my brain hurt because it's so much that has to go right. There's so many things and so many questions that it's probably not going to happen. And he knows this, but he is ready if he is. Because as I showed you, his team is performing really well. So if he gets in, he could very well just demolish everybody. Because the way he's been playing these past few weeks, no one's been able to step to him. And I'm the last person that's in his way right now, and I'm trying to win to make sure I have a spot. Because right now, if I lose to him, if I lose to the fundraisers here, check me out now, and everybody else wins. If the Kid Got Next wins, he goes up to 8-6, and the Suge Knights, they go up to 8-6, and the Murder Bonus is already at 8-6. I don't know where I'm going to stand at that point. I imagine since I beat the Suge Knights and I've beaten the Murder Boners and I've beaten the Kid, I would still have a spot. I imagine my spot is so secure, but I don't know how they're going to arrange all these things. But on top of all that going down, we've got a huge matchup here with the Murder Boners and the Kid Got Next. This is a huge matchup because if the Murder Boners wins this game, he's got his spot, he's secure. And if I win this game, I've got a spot, he's secure. That's probably going to be the three that are guaranteed. If that goes in, is going to be me, the Murder Boners, and Isaiah's team. However, that would leave, if the Suge Knights loses and the Kid Got Next loses, who gets that final spot? Who gets that final spot? Is it going to be Devon? If I lose, is it going to be Phil? There's a lot of things. There's going to be a lot of cluster for that fourth spot. There's going to be a lot of cluster for that fourth. I think that the only really secure person, obviously, is Isaiah, but the only other person may, in fact, be me. Because I've beaten everybody who's at that bottom clustering for those last spots. I've beaten everybody there. I have a tiebreaker between some of them. And I don't know who could get that last, but ESO Legends is still in the mix. A lot of things could well happen for him if Phil loses. If, the same people lose, there's a lot that could go and happen. There's a really good chance that a 7-7 team could make this and could get it and could get in. There's a lot that's going on here, people, as you can see from the standings and everything. There's a lot that can go on, and honestly, really, it's going to be, it's too much for me to really do. I could have really done the research and did like all the everything, but honestly, I don't know how to predict it. I don't know how to predict this, arithmetic that they're doing. I don't. And it's going to be, as I say every week, I've said every week since I think week 4 or 5, or basically since this whole thing has started, since I've started showing you guys this from the very first week. It's going to be hell on earth for whoever doesn't make that spot. Those last 2 spots, I believe, because those are wide open. The 3rd and 4th spot, I think, are pretty much wide open based on the matchups that we have for week 14. And a lot of people are going to be asked out. A lot of people are going to be here sitting, I can't believe I have to fight for 5th. I have to fight for 5th now when I should be fighting, I should be contending. And it's hard. I didn't see myself in this situation a few weeks back. Well, actually, a few weeks back, even when I was going on my streak, in the midst of my 7-game streak, I'm like, no, I'm not going to be able to keep this up. But here I am. And it's more than likely I'm going to be competing for a spot. This is my 3rd year overall of doing fantasy, folks. And now each and every year, it's looking like, this is my 3rd year, and it's looking like I'm going to be in the playoffs yet again. So this will be my 3rd consecutive year in the playoffs. Thus giving me the confidence to know that, okay, I know what I'm doing. I know I'm a good fantasy player. I know there's a whole bunch of variables that go into it due to luck, due to everything that just goes down in the football world. But I know I do my part because I get to the playoffs each and every single year. And how this all plays out is anyone's guess. I wanted to bring this to you guys all. And like I said, this is going to be a short episode. But I wanted to bring this to you guys all just to let you know this is going to be hectic. The next week, when everything is all settled, when the dust has finally settled, people, it's gonna be interesting to see how this turns out. It's gonna be very interesting because these standings right here are so close. There are two people who are legitimately have no shot of anything. Everybody else, there is some conceivable way of them making the playoffs. With 1 week left, 8 people, and there's only room for 4. There's only room for 4. The other 4 are going to be asked out. The other 4 are going to be playing for 5th place. And frankly, if you've been playing fantasy, and you know like fantasy leagues how they go, they're probably not going to really take that seriously, because they're going to feel like, wow, what does this mean? You know, fantasy is really competitive, especially in our league, and it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. It's going to be interesting, and I'm all ready for next week. I'm all ready to see how this weekend goes. It's fantasy, baby. It's fantasy. This is what we live for. This is what we live for. So that is it for this episode, folks. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more content like this if you aren't already subscribed. And make sure to turn on notifications. That way, when I upload a video, you will be notified and you won't miss a thing. And with that being said, I will see you all in the next video. Until then, I'm Demetrius Mack, and I'm out. Peace.